Does the Tanakh, the Old Testament, teach that only a sinless individual can provide atonement? Proverbs chapter 11 verse 8. Sadiq misoro nahalos wayove roshu' tahto. The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked comes in his place. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 18. Kufer las-sadiq roshu' wathahath yashurim bughath. The wicked is an atonement for the righteous, and the faithless come in the place of the upright. Isaiah chapter 43 verse 3. Ki ani adonai Elohecho qadesh Yisrael Mashiacho nofatich forecho Misraim kush usvo tahtacho. For I am the all-transcendent one, your all-powerful authority, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I have given Egypt as your atonement, Ethiopia and Seba in your place. Does the Tanakh, the Old Testament, support the view that without the shedding of blood there is no forgiveness of sins, as purported by Hebrews chapter 9 verse 22? Leviticus chapter 5 verse 10 through 12 states, وإذ هشاني يعسى عيرو كم مشبط وخيبار عيرو هكوهن محطوثة عشر حطو ونصلح له. And he shall prepare the second for a burnt offering, according to the ordinance, and the priest shall make atonement for him as concerning his sin which he has sinned, and he shall be forgiven. Verse 11. وإم لوثا سيغوذو لشتثوريم أوليش نيفنا ينو وهذي أث قربنا عشر حطو عصيرث وإفو سلث لحطوث لا يصيم علاه شاما ولا يتن علاه لذنو كي حطوث هي. But if he is not able to obtain 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he shall bring the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a sin offering, as his offering for having sinned. He shall put no oil upon it, neither shall he put any frankincense thereon, for it is a sin offering. Verse 12. وهذيو الهكوهن وقماص هكوهن ممنو ملء قمص أث أذكروثه وهبطير هم مزباحه على إشاء أذنوي حطوث هي. And he shall bring it to the priest, and the priest shall take his handful of it as the memorial part thereof, and make it smoke on the altar, upon the offerings of the Lord made by fire. It is a sin offering. Verse 13. وخيبار علو هكوهن على حطوثة عشر حطو ما أحث من الله ونصلح له وهو يثول هكوهن كم منحو. And the priest shall make atonement for him as touching his sin, that he has sinned in any of these things, and he shall be forgiven, and the remnant shall be the priest's as a meal offering. From these verses it should now be clear that the individual who is not able to obtain and offer a blood sacrifice is still able to acquire atonement without a shedding of blood for his sins, as verse 13 stated, and he shall be forgiven. Now Leviticus chapter 26 verse 39. وهنيش أوريم بوخم إمقو بعبنهم بأرصيث أيذيخن وأف بعبنث أذيثون إتوم إمقو. And those of you who remain shall waste away in their sins in your enemies' lands, and also in the sins of their fathers shall they waste away with them. Verse 40 and 41. وهيث ودو أثعبانهم وأثعبان أبثهم بمعلوم أشر معلوذي وأف أشر هلخو عمي بقاري أف أني إليخ عمهم بقاري وهذا في أثم بأرس أيذيهن أوزي كناع لغوهم ها عرل وأوز يرسو أثعبانهم. But if they confess their sins and the sin of their fathers in their unfaithfulness, by which they were unfaithful to me, and also that they have walked with me in opposition. That also is why I went contrary to them, by bringing them into the land of their enemies. Then, when their uncircumcised hearts are humbled, then they will have paid for their sins. These verses teach that when the people of Israel will be dispersed among the nations, that when they confess their sins and humble themselves before the Almighty, that their sins will be paid for. This will be without their needing to bring any kind of blood sacrifice as a prerequisite to the atonement, since sacrifices are only allowed to be done at the place which the Almighty would choose, as indicated in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 13 through 14. It should be known to all that he chose Jerusalem and the Temple Mount in that city. But these verses teach that their being forgiven is outside of the land of Israel, in the land of their enemies, wherein for them to bring a blood sacrifice would actually be an additional violation of the Torah, the very reason why they are punished in the land of their enemies. So yes, while it is true that blood has been given upon the altar for atonement, money and flour may also be given as means of atonement. And the truth is that none of these are of value if the individual's heart is not already made right before his Maker. This is why Psalm 51 records David as repenting and asking for forgiveness even before making sacrifices. Verse 3 of Psalm 51 states, "Be gracious unto me, O venerable authority, according to your mercy, according to the multitude of your compassions, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin." And he continues on. Would King David have been repenting and beseeching forgiveness before making a sacrifice, had he thought that forgiveness was impossible without blood sacrifice? Indeed, he begs the question in verse 18 of the same chapter by writing that it is not a sacrifice that the Lord desires, nor a burnt offering that he wants. Ki lo thahpes zadah wa atano ulo lo thirsa. For you delight not in sacrifice, or else would I give it. You have no pleasure in a burnt offering. Rather than a burnt offering, it is a broken spirit, a heart broken and humbled, that are the sacrifices of the venerable authority. According to verse 19, one who has a humbled heart, such as this, is not scorned by the Lord. Zivhe Elohim ruach nishboro, lev nishbor wanidka, Elohim lo thivza. The sacrifices of the venerable authority are a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart. O venerable authority, you will not scorn. Then, in verse 21, only after having already offered up the sacrifice of the venerable authority, which is a humbled heart, and therefore no longer is he despised by the Almighty, only then does King David write that the Lord desires that we bring sacrifices and offerings upon the actual altar, and only then are these sacrifices called righteous. Oz tahpes zivhe sada, iro ukholil, oz ya'lu al mizbaha khoforim. Then will you delight in the sacrifices of righteousness, in burnt offering and whole offering. Then will they offer bullocks upon your altar. So we see that according to Psalm 51, verse 18 through 21, the Lord does not want blood sacrifices unless his scorn against man has already been removed. How is this divine scorn removed? We read in verse 19 that it is by the invisible sacrifice of one's spirit and heart. Only after having been made right with the Lord through the humbling of one's own heart is the individual to express this inner sacrifice outwardly by sacrificing in the temple whenever he is able to do so. Otherwise, if one makes a sacrifice in the temple without having returned to the Almighty beforehand, the blood sacrifice he makes in the temple will actually be detestable to the Lord. In fact, this is among the main reasons for the destruction of the temple. The way of being made right with the Almighty and being forgiven of sins has not changed, as Hosea chapter 14, verse 2-3 states.